Dabo Swinney just landed a martial artist offensive lineman who could anchor Clemson's line for years to come, but they're not done yet. We'll talk about it right here on Locked On Clemson.
You are Locked On Clemson, your daily podcast on the Clemson Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Tiger fans? I'm Morgan Thomas here, Clemson fan, Clemson grad, host and producer of this show, and part-time host and producer over on 105.5 FM The Roar. Thank you so much for making Locked On Clemson your first listen every day. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. If you're new to the show, you know to hit that like button and subscribe so you can never miss an episode. And you know how we do it here on Locked On. If you're an everydayer, exclusive Clemson content all throughout the week. Don't forget to follow me over on X at The Morgan T Show, where we can talk about Clemson whenever and however you want. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. And today it's going to be more coverage on recruiting because Clemson recruiting is heating up. And I know that you're looking to talk about it for sure. Leo Delaney commits to Clemson. And we've got some prayers answered, maybe for some of the Clemson fans out there. And then we'll talk about the 2027 recruiting class more in depth as we continue our coverage on Clemson recruiting this offseason. Football has landed another commit for the 2026 recruiting cycle, a versatile and physically gifted offensive lineman. Leo Delaney isn't just a name that you need to know, but he could be a big-time talent that could jump into the NFL. And I'm finding out that he has some martial arts background that kind of helpfully chop down those defensive linemen. Four-star guy from Providence Day. You probably know where that's from. That's in Charlotte. That's one of the big football schools out there in Charlotte. Clemson hasn't had a ton of luck out of Providence Day, but it's kind of nice that they now have a guy that's coming in to, accept a commitment to Clemson from that school because, hey, anything around Charlotte, it's a big deal for me because you want to get in the big cities in the areas of your pipeline. And that South Carolina border to me has always been important, and one that, it seems like Clemson has kind of struggled in it at times, but had some success with Delaney. He committed just today, picking the Tigers over Michigan and Penn State. And he accelerated his timeline after an official visit this past weekend, which he said was a red carpet experience. Not a surprise to Clemson fans that they would pull out the red carpet for a guy like this. But Clemson had been recruiting him hard for quite some time now and making him one of their earlier offensive offers in the class. So they obviously made this guy a priority. And it's really cool to see because he seems to have the measurables that you're looking for. And Matt Luke is going after some big dudes on the offensive line and making some shockwaves because he's not just the only offensive lineman that Matt Luke has been able to pull in. And one of the reasons why they're having such a successful 2026 recruiting class so far, top 5 in the nation, is because of their success on the offensive line. A lot of analysts out there saying Delaney could be a day 2 draft pick, a multi-year starter for a Power 4 team out there. He's got great technique, obviously has the size, explosiveness, and he could be one of those guys that you would expect to kind of fight for some early playing time as he gets onto campus, especially as Clemson continues to, cycle through some of their more veteran guys when he comes around in 2026 as a freshman. He, could be one of those guys that could build towards another push towards the championship, push towards postseason on the offensive line. He can play tackle. He can play guard, can even switch sides. He's got a black belt in Jeet Kune Do, which, I didn't know anything about Jeet Kune Do, which kind of seems ridiculous that I didn't know this, but maybe it's a knock on my man card, but this was developed by Bruce Lee. So this is his technique and basically helps him sharpen his hand combat skills, making him, more versatile and more difficult to overcome in the run and pass blocking schemes that he has out there. I mean, the offensive linemen have to be really good with their hands and very purposeful with where they put their hands. And, in a lot of ways, very violent and explosive with how they use their hands. So that to me, I think that is a good cross sport to be a part of, if you'd call it. I mean, it's a combat sport, right? But it's a good skill that can transferable skills, what I'm trying to say, between the two, football and martial arts, making him, to me, much stronger on the offensive line. And it's not really just about that. I mean, he has the height and weight, the measurables to back it up as well. 6'6", 290 pounds. We're talking about a guy who is a rising senior this fall at 6'6", 290. So he has definitely got the measurables there. And, when you look at some of his film on huddle.com, I really love his footwork. And he kind of is a guy that reminds you of somebody who could go out and be a tight end if he needed to be. I mean, like I said, you see highlights of him playing guard, playing tackle, playing left side, playing right side. And now this is, one of multiple 4-star offensive linemen that Matt Luke has brought in 2026, creating and hopefully building exactly what Matt Luke wants. The guys that are on the team aren't bad by any stretch of the imagination, but they are not technically guys that Matt Luke had any hand in, really, except maybe the true freshman, right? But Matt Luke is starting to build out his group of guys. So I'm curious to see, how it all works out when he gets a chance to pick exactly who he wants. And he's obviously having success because he's able to get a handful of guys in for 2026 that want to be a part of his program. Now, there's always a concern. Some fans maybe feel like anytime there's an offer and a commitment in the summer, there's always a concern because you got to go through your senior season. He's not actually going to sign his national letter of intent until December, more than likely. So you still got time to go through a whole football season. And, anybody can be flipped, but he has ties to Clemson. He has family members that I'm aware of that have graduated from Clemson. And he seemed to just be very, thankful and excited about getting an offer from Clemson and just being able to be a part of the program and visit the university. So to me, that kind of suggests that this is more solid than not. And with Matt Luke being around, he's going to get elite level hands-on coaching. And with the type of measurables and the skill set he has with his film, I think that he's a guy who could fight for early playing time at Clemson, which would give me all the more reason why he would want to stay around and stick through this commit to the very end till he signs. So I'm excited to see what happens to him. Now, you know how it goes with offensive linemen. We may not actually get to see him light up Saturdays until a few years down the road, but it is good because Matt Luke has to build around a foundation of guys that he wants on the team. And to me, this is a statement for him, showing that he can go toe-to-toe with anybody else out there, Big Ten, SEC, and come out with a big-time offensive lineman. Clemson's culture is still elite. They're still able to compete in the NIL era. And with coaches like Matt Luke, you have to be very confident and excited about what the future holds for Clemson and that offensive line, because you have to have an offensive line that can protect your quarterback and also open up lanes for your running game as well. All right, we're going to continue this conversation about recruiting with one big-time offer that could be an answer to all the fans' prayers out there. The NBA playoffs are in full swing, and every night delivers highlight-worthy performances, major momentum shifts, and can't-miss moments. Whether it's a game-winning shot or a breakout player, there's never been a better time to get in on the action. FanDuel makes it easy to stay in the game before tip-off and live with player props, performance trends, and same-game parlays. Fans have more ways than ever to play smart and win big. I'm looking at the FanDuel research site right now. I love FanDuel.com and their research center. It has a ton of insights for me, who's relatively new at this whole FanDuel game. But the NBA finals are coming up, and they've got an article out just recently released today talking about the two best bets out there. Indiana Pacers plus 9.5 for game one. A lot of people getting in on that. And then the Pacers over 110.5 points in game one as well. A lot of people seem to be excited about that one. So go check it out, see what you think. And again, if it's your first time ever, if you're new to FanDuel, it's the perfect time for you because you can head over to FanDuel.com and place your first $5 bet. If that bet wins, you'll get $200 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, official sports betting partner of the NBA. Clemson just offered a punter. Yeah, you heard it right. Clemson just offered a punter. And it wasn't just any punter. It wasn't just another punter like any old punter out there. Mikey Bukauskas, I don't know if I'm saying that right, but I'm going to go with it, is the number 2 punter in the entire country for 2026 recruiting class. And he could be a long-time answer to prayers for all those fans out there that have been complaining about punting for all these years. 6'3", 205-pound prospect from Prosper, Texas, received a full scholarship offer for 2026 just yesterday. Clemson fans, I know, have been bugging me, texting me, DMing me, going into YouTube, putting in the comments about how frustrated they've been watching inconsistent punting over the past few seasons. They haven't been thrilled about the special teams. When I did a show about special teams, everybody agreed that we can't ignore that. And it seems like Dabo is okay with ignoring special teams. And he's going to take his official visit on June 6th. And to me, the reaction online about this shows that he is excited about checking out the Clemson Tiger culture out there, which I know a lot of the recruits that come around, once they see it, it's hard to pick anywhere else for sure. But maybe, just maybe, we were wrong about Dabo Swinney ignoring special teams completely. Now, I know we have Jack Smith for this year and possibly next season. And Bukauskas, I guess is how you say it, is going to be a true freshman in 2026. But this is really about securing the future and doing the right thing and not just kind of ignoring special teams, ignoring field position. With a top talent like this, one of the best in the country, that is why it's so important. Bukauskas got his number 2 ranking from Cole's Kicking, and it speaks volumes because he's not just a random kid that showed up to camp. Second of all, it shows that Dabo Swinney is very serious about this because he doesn't typically hand out early full rides to punters out there unless he's absolutely convinced that they're going to be game changers. And fans have been extremely loud and vocal about special teams needing a boost like this. I think they also need a boost in the kick returning game as well. But punting is definitely one area that my friend Marty and a lot of your friends and listeners to the show have all said, hey, we need a boost to this. We need an answer to this. We just can't get by with the bare minimum. I understand. I mean, there's give and take when it comes to offering a specialist early on. When it comes to Clemson, he only has one confirmed offer so far, and the one, uh, you know, is from Clemson. But that shows why Dabo Swinney values him so much. He's obviously seen him in person and been able to check out his size, check out his ability, and I think this is a calculated move for Clemson. Bukauskas represents something that is important for Tigers in general, and that is field position. Dabo maybe, just maybe, is listening to us. And I say that jokingly because I don't think he actually cares anything about what the fans think, because he's been doing this for, nearly, over 30 years. So he doesn't need fans to tell him what to do. But he's definitely a guy that can understand where the glaring needs are on his staff and in his roster. And winning the field position battle is extremely important going forward. Flipping the momentum at any moment in time is key. Now, we've seen it many times happen against Clemson, where they haven't been able to get things going, and then not being able to make a good punt. All of a sudden, get this, like, let's say that you stop South Carolina, right? You stop South Carolina, but they have a good punter. Well, they pin you deep, and then your offense, for whatever reason, can't get it going either, but you don't have as good of a punter. So then you punt, but instead of pinning them deep and reversing the field, what happens is you barely get it to midfield. Now, I know as I'm describing this to you, you're probably thinking, well, Morgan, this is what we've seen for years. And I think that is true. And I think that's why Dabo Swinney is trying to address this glaring need in the field position battle. This is the modern approach to recruiting and recruiting specialists. Clemson, if Dabo sees a guy that can be a difference maker and is one of the better rated recruits out there when it comes to a punter. I know it seems crazy in some ways to put such an emphasis on offering a punter like this, along with a lot of your big time recruits out there. But Clemson is building, not only offense and defense, and they have to understand that they're building special teams as well. Bukauskas, if he commits this weekend after checking out the campus, which is a high possibility that he could, Clemson could have a big time punter for long term to help bridge the gap after Jack Smith has graduated. So, I think this guy's the real deal, and he could be booming punts in Death Valley if everything goes well this summer in his visit to Clemson. So before you know it, Clemson could be a major player in the field position game, and kind of ease some of the tension and stress off of not only the offense, but the defense as well. So we'll see how it all shakes out. But it is nice to know as a fan, regardless of why Dabo Swinney is sending this offer out there now or not, it is nice to know that it seems to be an area of need that they are trying to address. That's for sure. Now, I know what you're going to tell me too. You're going to say, well, Morgan, all these other guys that they have offered, they were offers during the summer too, and they didn't really pan out. Aiden Swanson really didn't pan out like we thought. Jack Smith, we're not hearing amazing things from him either. We didn't see a ton in the spring game. So I get it. There's a lot of concern there with evaluation. But it's not just Clemson evaluating this in camp. This guy has nationally ranked outlets out there saying he's one of the best in the country. So I have to lean on that and hope that he can come to Clemson this summer and enjoy his visit, and it work out to where he is wearing a Tiger uniform in Death Valley as a freshman in 2026. All right, we're going to wrap up the show today talking about Clemson's 2027 offers. They've got more coming out. We're going to look a little bit deeper into it and see how it's building out for 2027. 12 total offers, multiple 5 stars on the board. Clemson's 2027 recruiting strategy is off to a big time start. And guess what? As I mentioned it on yesterday's show, they've already got a guy on the board, and that is Max Brown, Sammy Brown's younger brother, which, is not shocking there because we all knew that he and Sammy both are big time Clemson fans. But it is a good start to the offseason and to that 2027 recruiting class, because some of your first commits that are out there are your biggest recruiters themselves. So now he can turn into a recruiter and try to go help build the class up for 2027. And what I've already told you, there's a lot of discussion about who is the better Brown between Sammy and Max. And I've always believed that the younger of the siblings seems to always want to prove more or have more to prove. And so maybe Max Brown comes out and shocks the world and shows how good he is. And maybe Sammy isn't the best football player on the team or in the family. But, there's been a lot of movement just in the past couple of days, because since June 1st, Clemson has now offered 12 elite 2027 recruits across multiple levels of the football team: offensive line, linebacker, running back, cornerback. So we're looking at big time, trying to get the trenches, trying to get the second level, trying to get a playmaker at running back, and then cornerback and lockdown over there. So you've got Mike Reed in the mix, Matt Luke, CJ Spiller, and Ben Bulware all working overtime right now in their areas are the keys for 2027. So it kind of gives you a little bit of insight of where Clemson's trying to fill for 2027. And really right now, the class is headlined by big time stars like Kennedy Brown, who is an offensive tackle, one of the best in the country and possibly the best in the country. Matt Luke shows that he's not afraid to go after the best of the best of the best. And I think that's a great message to send out there, especially for what Clemson is trying to build towards. And then Mike Reed on the other side, not only is this an in-state guy, but he's one of the best of the best of the best at cornerback position. Joshua Dobson, we talked about him yesterday, but big-time national targets from all over the country too, and not just the country and nationally, but they didn't forget about South Carolina either. So you got Texas, Florida, Pennsylvania, and South Carolina all being represented so far in their first batch of offers that are going out there, with Max Brown, Sammy Brown's younger brother, already committed to help lead that charge. Clemson is building towards something special in 2027. And I love kind of being a part of this with you guys. This is my first year with Locked On Clemson, hopefully of many, many, many decades with Locked On Clemson. But what I like about now that we're able to build this or cover this together as you're listening is that we kind of go through it together, and we go through the pains and the ups and downs of all the recruiting. So 2027 is like our class, okay? Between you and me as a listener, as an everydayer, we're going to kind of follow 2027 with, a very scout eye, I guess you could say, because Clemson is building with intention. They're trying to balance, but also trying to get out to an elite national level of reach across multiple different big-time states with big-time recruits. And it's never been about just collecting up stars. These guys are guys that could be core leaders for Clemson in the future, with Max Brown as the anchor. A lot of upside that we're seeing right now with these guys. As I mentioned, Kennedy Brown, the best offensive tackle in the country. Dobson, not only the best player in South Carolina, but one of the best cornerbacks in the country. Clemson is striking extremely hard and early on their class to try to leverage exactly what they need for 2027. And as I mentioned, we look at it: offensive line, linebacker, running back, and cornerback are key positions for 2027. And it really kind of shows balance too, because you don't just have, Dobson as your in-state guy, but you got Segura, also the running back, as an in-state guy. And then you have national guys like Brown and Callis. So a lot of, very versatile, very strategic group of guys that are coming out early in this group. Now, we know when I say early, if you're new to the Clemson recruiting game, it's not that Clemson is first to the line. And, when I first started covering Clemson over the years, there were a lot of fans that said, well, Morg, we didn't get in first with these guys. And I'll tell you that when you look at when they were offered, that is a deceiving date to look at, because just because the date says June 1st does not mean that was the first time that they ever spoke to that player, saw that player, developed a relationship with that player. Typically, these guys have had relationships with these players for 2 or 3 years before they get the offer. And when they're in this recruiting process, Dabo and the position coaches let them know, hey, this is how Clemson rolls. We don't just offer 200 of the best players on the board just so you can say you have an offer from us. We're going to offer you if we want you and we need you and we can use you and we believe in the talent and your ability to be developed in our program. So there has to be a huge commitment on Clemson's side, but also Dabo has made this known many times that they need to see a little give and take and a little bit of interest from the recruit standpoint as well. You can't just never show up to a Clemson camp, never show up to an unofficial visit, never come to a game and decide that you want and demand that you get an offer from Clemson. Now, it's happened here and there, but it's very rare that Dabo will allow an offer to go out to somebody who's never even been on campus, who's never even come to a football game, who's never even expressed any kind of push on their end, any kind of effort on their side of things. So what we're seeing here is these first 12 guys have shown a ton of interest in Clemson. Clemson is obviously extremely interested in them, and they are some of the best for 2027, according to the evaluations that the coaching staff has made so far. And a lot of them are already ranked, as I mentioned, highly in the national level. And I know it's early. Some of these kids are just finishing up, and moving into their junior year. But, this is kind of where Dabo gets in and he gets serious with these guys to prove that, they're committed. They want to develop them. They want them to be a part of the program. This wave of offers, builds up into what can 2027 be, what type of character you're going to get, what kind of talent you're going to get, and what this team could be long-term. A lot of these guys aren't going to come in and compete immediately. Some of the elite of elite guys will, for sure, but not everybody will that comes in. They'll have to, work through. So even if they're a freshman in 2027, you may not see their name or have any stats on them until maybe 28 or 29. So it is much further in the future, but that's what you have to do at the college football level right now. And, Dabo starts you getting serious with you when you're a junior and then works with you to try to get you an official visit as a senior, as a junior, and then move you into hopefully signing with the university, an early signing period, which would be, December. So these guys won't be part of December. The 2026 guys still kind of trying to wrap up. That's why there's still offers for 2026. You're seeing go out, still commitments for 2026 still out there. Those will still go on till the end of the year. And then, you don't want to wait until next year to start with 2027. That's why it's a good time in the summer to go ahead and start with 2027 for sure as well. So Clemson starting to build out that recruiting class for 2027. Hopefully you're getting excited. I look forward to working through it with you and discussing it with you as they continue to go through and build out the 2027 recruiting class. So it will be the Locked On Clemson Morgan Thomas first class that we'll kind of cover in depth. So I'm looking forward to it together. If Clemson can land even just half of these first 12 that they got, man, you're talking about another top 5, top 10 class for 2027 to match 2026 that's already in the top 5. So they're trying to get back to just rolling stars after stars. So pretty awesome to see. Hey, thank you so much for being a part of the show today and making Locked On Clemson your first listen. For your second listen, check out the Portal Show with Brian Smith. You know, he's a fan and a friend of the show and a Florida State guy, but he's got the latest rumors, portal entries, signings. You can be the most informed fan of the rapid changes in college football. Find the Portal over on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. And as always, Tiger fans, we'll see you at the top of the hill.